Okay, so you've been sent a working with a real estate agent guide. This in by no way is a contract. It is simply for information for you. So I wanted to go through the key points of this document. It is quite a long one. And at the end, there is an acknowledgement saying that you have gone through the information and know what's in there and understand what's in there. So we'll start with page 1. We're going to quickly cover what's in this guide. It's basically what it's like to be working with a real estate agent, but it also mentions that you could be a self-represented party and it lets you know about those risks. Then it talks about signing a contract, which we can go through in more detail, but basically with a real estate brokerage, signing a contract, what is multiple representation, and how to make a complaint if there is a problem. So those are the main things in this guide. We'll get right into it. Page 2 is a list of basic services that you are going to receive from any real estate agent that you were under contract with. If you were selling, this will include, but is not limited to, advice on market conditions, attracting buyers, pricing your home, marketing and advertising your property, showings, home inspections, referrals, professionals, all of those things being scheduled for you, handling offers, negotiating, guiding you through the paperwork, making sure paperwork all goes the right place. For buyers, it is very similar. They're going to be assisting you with pre-approvals, professionals for those items, lawyers, home inspectors as you need them, obviously. Knowledge of the neighborhood, different homes, basically guiding you through the process of buying a home that is correct for you, which includes offer presentation, negotiation, and again, paperwork and making sure it gets to the right spots. On to page 3, it's going to talk about what you receive from a real estate agent when you sign a contract. So what you are getting first and foremost is undivided loyalty. You are also getting just any disclosure regarding the transaction. So any kind of pricing discussion, anything that a potential buyer or seller has mentioned that is not under contract, that will all go back to you from your agent as a person under contract. You're going to be getting confidentiality from that agent for your transaction and knowing that they must avoid any conflict of interest situations that might arise, unless obviously we talk about that, which is in multiple representation later on down the road. As a client, you have a clear responsibility to advise your wants and needs to the agent, to respond in a timely manner, and to understand all the agreements that you are signing. Page 4 and 5 talk about how you have an opportunity to represent yourself as a buyer or a seller. You would then be called a self-represented party in this situation. And obviously it wants to let you know the significant risks of this, especially since you'll be the one dealing with probably another agent on the other side who is now protecting the interests of their own client and not yourself. Being self-represented truly is that. You are self-representing yourself and you are not protected by an agent or any kind of contract, but you do have an opportunity to change your mind at any time through the process. If you're going through starting as self-represented and then change your mind, you are definitely welcome to do that. Change your paperwork and we can work that out for you. So when you are dealing with another agent, buyer or seller, they are again representing their buyer or seller and they are representing their interests. So there's a quick list of professional things as a self-represented party that you might want to make sure you take care of and get access to. So zoning, permits, use of property, no one can assist you with that unless you call directly to the city, for example. Determining the value of the property, an agent will not be able to give you this information if you are self-represented. Navigating and negotiating offers, paperwork, pricing, terms, preparing all of that. None of that can be done for you if you are self-represented. So these are things a lot of people are used to getting as services from a licensed agent. You will not be receiving any of those if you are a self-represented party. If you are a self-represented party and you speak to an agent on the other side of the transaction, please know that they are once again working for their client and they are going to be able to go ahead and give that person any information that you give to them. So if you discuss pricing, conditions, possibly the home that you have to sell, any details that you discuss with them, that can actually go right back to their client. So again, as a self-represented party, be cautious on what you mention when you are speaking to another agent on the other side of the transaction. And again, keep in mind that any assistance that agent gives you is in interest of their client, not in interest of yourself. So as a self-represented party, be cautious in that way. You can't rely on any advice that they give to you. Any opinions, any services they give you are in relation to their client. Okay, on to page 6 and 8. So this is when you have decided to work with an agent. You are going to be signing an agreement to be working with that agent, whether that be a listing agreement for listing your home or a buyer's agreement when you are purchasing a property. This agent will be representing you in the transaction. So it's going to be called a designated representative. When you work with Brad and myself, you're going to have both of our names on your agreement. So that's one thing to look out for on the agreements. Number one thing to look out for is the name of the agents who are working with you, so you are aware of who is representing your interests. The scope of the agreement, which could include the property itself that you may be purchasing or a geographic area area, so make sure that is correct as well. If you're working in more than one geographic area, it is possible to have more than one buyer's agreement with a different agent, simply because you might be looking out of the scope of another agent's area. The list of all services that you are receiving, so this will be a Schedule A attached to both agreements, a buyer and a listing agreement. This will give the specific services breakdown that that agent will be providing to you, and those can be modified based on your needs. The payment of terms, so you must agree that you are aware of how this agent is being paid, whether that be a percentage or a flat fee or a combination of both. You will be agreeing to that and you will be signing regarding that as well. Keep in mind for buyers that often sellers do pay the commission, but buyers do still agree to an amount to be paid by the buyer if there is no agreement from the seller to be paid to the agent. So if that is going to happen, we're definitely going to advise you of that. It is a very specific situation, and you would know of that before we negotiate an offer for you, because it is a very large piece of that offer. There's also going to be termination terms within this agreement. So you're going to know how you can end the contract, whether that be a multiple representation situation where you're moving to another agent or simply terminating. Those agreements are going to also be in there, and there will be an expiry date on this contract. So all the contracts have to come to an end. Make sure you are aware of when your expiry date on that contract is, because that is when your agreement with that agent ends and either needs to be extended or hopefully your transaction is completed. And finally, there's a holdover clause on there. So this clause is there to protect the agent to work for you. So if the agreement expires, then they would be able to go ahead and collect commission based on work done after a certain period of time when it expires. So for example, if you look at a property and your agreement expires, say 10 days later, and then 20 days later you decide to buy that property, if you have a 30-day holdover clause, then you would be asked to pay commission to the agent based on that property that they showed you, and then you went around and purchased privately. Again, a very specific situation and not often used. Page 9 is dealing with multiple representation and what that means for you. So what this means is the agent you are working with is dealing with more than one client in a transaction. Most often that would be the agent representing the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. Of course, this would never happen unless you are advised by your agent that this is happening and you have to agree to this situation. You do have an option as a multiple representation if it arises to back out of the agreement. The other time a multiple representation may happen is if you have, say, you're a buyer, you're buying a property, and that agent has another buyer also buying the same property. So they are now representing two clients in the same transaction. That is multiple representation. If you agree to multiple representation, know that your agent must offer all clients involved, must treat them in an objective and impartial manner. So they can't maintain undivided loyalty to you and also to the other person. Basically, they are impartial in this situation, which means they can't provide you advice on pricing, terms, should accept an offer, if you should, refuse an offer. Any kind of information cannot be given to you in that instance from your agent. Simply, they are going to be completing the paperwork for you, still guiding you through the process after the fact, but during the offer negotiation, they cannot offer a lot of additional assistance in that way. And know again that you can decline this and then be redirected to another agent in the office is a great place to be. So they could assist you in that way and be a little more working on your side. That is completely up to you. Page 10 talks about open offers. As a seller, sellers are able to now choose how much they disclose about an offer to the other side of the transaction, so to the buyer's agents. They could disclose things like price, deposit, closing date, conditions. All those things can be disclosed. Nothing personal, obviously, but any details of the offer itself can be disclosed. Once it is disclosed, it has to be disclosed to all parties involved in the transaction, but that is solely at the seller's discretion. So they could have a closed offer process, decide to open it back up, and then close it up again. It is completely up to them. As a buyer, you have a choice on whether you want to get involved in an offer like this. Obviously, if this is happening, you would generally know before it happens, or you may be in the middle of an offer while it happens, and then can choose to withdraw your offer. So there are options as a buyer if you don't want to get involved in an open offer process, but that is an option that we now have that we didn't have before. And finally, on page 11, it is the contact on where to make a complaint. I'm not going to go over it here, but first you would obviously contact the brokerage of the person from the agent you're working with. And then if that didn't work out for you, you would go to the Real Estate Council of Ontario, and their contact information is there on the paperwork. So all you have to do now is go ahead and acknowledge that you have received this information. Again, this is not a contract to work with me as an agent. This is simply the details of what it's like to work with a real estate agent and the options available to you. Once you go ahead and acknowledge this, we can now go ahead and do a bit of work for you so that you know what's happening in real estate. And then we will be asking you to sign a commitment when the time is right for either a listing agreement or as a buyer's contract. Can't wait to help you on your home journey. We look forward to working with you.